Friends, how's everybody? So good to see you all. Welcome to Election Day. Yay. Hope everybody's gotten their ballots in by now. And if you haven't already mailed it in some weeks ago, I dropped off mine a couple weeks ago. And yes, so it'll be a fun evening for sure. And hopefully everything goes on peacefully all during the day. Anyway, so welcome to our seminar on use of emergency radios. So good to see everybody here. My name is Frank Ko, and I am your host for the next hour in learning a little bit more about how to use radios during emergencies. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is to share my screen with you. And let me go ahead and do this and share here. And share this particular guy will be fine. All right. So using radios in emergencies. I do have to give special thanks to one of our faculty members who introduced me to the idea of ham radios almost a year ago to this very month. It's very interesting. I knew that I had an interest to communicate with my family members in the event of something like an emergency. And how do I do that when cell phones go down? So I was thinking, well, let's see, firemen do it. Emergency, your paramedics do it, and police certainly do it. There must be a way for private citizens to do this. And so I was at a bit of a loss. And so out of the blue, Dr. Catherine Pincus, her office is right across the hall from mine in building 400. She says, out of the blue, she asked me, Frank, do you know anything about ham radios? And I go, no, should I? I don't know. And so she started me on this path of research, and I've been very, very involved with radios since last November. And so let me share some of the things that I've discovered in my journey so far with you regarding the use of radios. So let's go ahead and start with this. Here we go. Can you all see my slides? Give me a thumbs up if you can. Terrific, wonderful. All right, well, you know about PSPS, and your PSPS is your power safety power shutoff. PG&E does that and gives you what we call our rolling blackouts. And they have to do that from time to time to protect us from a greater threat of firestorms when there's a very, very low humidity, very, very a lot of dryness and winds that are blowing around. So when that happens, some of us who've experienced that have lost the use of our cell phones. In addition to losing power to your refrigerators, freezers, and things of that for some indeterminate period of time. So how do you communicate with your family members when something like that happens? So this is something that is imposed upon us for our overall safety, the PG&E power shutoffs. And so hopefully they give us some forewarning when it does happen so we can get prepared. Let's take a look at the next situation that can happen. And that is when the firestorms that have occurred all during summer throughout our wonderful state, where property has been destroyed and unfortunately lives have been lost, and people have been scrambling to try to get to safety first and foremost and try to protect some aspect of their property. And in the confusion of it all, if the cell phone services cease to work, how do you communicate with your family? You need to have an alternative to the cell phone. And so let's take a look yet another situation. Here, if we take a look at, yes, quakes, the big quake Loma Prieta happened back in '89. I remember when the Bay Bridge collapsed. I remember when all the cell phones did in fact go out. I remember trying to get a hold of my family, and I was able to for the first half hour or so right after the earthquake. But after that, there was no communication. So what do we do in a situation like that? Didn't have radio then, didn't know about it then, but sure would have been handy if I had radio in my hand. And when cell services are down, who uses radios? Well, certainly your Department of Homeland Security, certainly private citizens, all of your emergency services, your police services, they're all going to be all over using radios because Although radios are not foolproof, yes, they are going to be succumb to structural issues, mountains and buildings and things of that sort. They are, again, an alternative to the cell phone. We've become so dependent on the use of our cell phones, and hopefully in the event of emergencies, cell phones will persist working. But when they don't, nice to have radios. So here is a overview of what the FCC has allocated for our range of frequencies here in the United States. The FCC is the Federal Communications Commission, and they have complete authority in allocating what range of frequencies can be used by which end users. And if we take a look at the spectrum, you can see we have television in there, you've got cell phones in there, you've got medical, you've got Wi-Fi. How many of us do use Wi-Fi? Everything that we use, that is your garage door opener, it's all radio frequencies. All those frequencies are governed by the FCC, and they give us very specific slots and ranges of frequencies in order for us to communicate. For our radios, they will be somewhere down here where it does say radio, all the way up to where we also have radio up here. So quite a range of different frequencies that are available to us. And we'll talk about several different kinds of radios in just a moment. The types of radios that I want to discuss with you today are these categories: FRS, GMRS, amateur radio, your citizens band, CB radio, MERS, and we'll focus our attention really on the first three. The FRS radios, they are, FRS stands for Family Radio Service. What are they? Well, let me take a moment and stop us from the share, pause on the share, and come to my camera screen. And on my camera screen, here's a selection of radios that I have in my collection. And let me bring the camera over to where the radios are and focus. So our FRS are our wonderful, these guys right up in front. This is what many of us have used for camping, for going on trips. Those of you who've been on cruises have found these to be pretty handy up to a point. And they are your Walmart specials, your Target specials, and they work well for their intended purpose. They do have some limitations, which we'll talk about. And so some of you have these types of radios. Their FRS radios are identified by these short stubby antennas. So there's an antenna here, fixed antenna here, here, here. And so some of you have these in some, your kitchen drawers or study drawers, somewhere on a shelf somewhere collecting dust. And it would be really, really cool if we can get them out of the dust and bring them onto the campus someday and try using them, okay? And if you don't happen to have one, somebody in your family probably does. I remember when we were going as a family to driving trips down to Disneyland, down Highway 5. And so my brother-in-law would have a radio, my sister-in-law would have a radio, I would have a radio, and somebody else would have another radio, and we would all be within line of sight of each other on the freeway. And we'd have all our radios on, and this is years ago, I got this maybe 10, 15 years ago. And so we'd have all our radios on to the same channel, and we're driving down the freeway, and all of a sudden, Junior comes on and says, oh, little Jerry has to go make a pit stop. So why don't we all make a pit stop in 2 exits ahead, and all the cars will hear the same transmission because we're all on the same frequency. And it was very handy for us to use our FRS radios in that fashion. And so when we get out to a campsite, for example, we're in Yosemite and we're hiking up to Nevada Falls or Yosemite Falls, and we may not be able to see each other, but we're within half a mile of each other. We would use our wonderful FRS radios and be able to communicate just fine with each other. These are great little radios. They have a number of channels that are available to you, but they do have certain limitations, which we'll talk about. But these are the FRS radios that, if I go back to my slide for just a moment, right here and to here and here, you can see that their wattage output is kind of limited between half a watt up to a maximum of 2 watts. Now, the wattage output of your radio is a significant factor. It's something that you want to consider. The couple of factors for the success of a radio is this: the higher the wattage, the farther it can broadcast, and the antenna is another issue, and the electronics are another issue. So FRS, Family Radio Service, is one type of radio. The next type of radio that we'll talk about is GMRS, and GMRS stands for General Mobile Radio Service, and they can be from just a couple of watts all the way up to 50 watts. Now, remember what I said: the more wattage that you are able to utilize, the farther that the radio can broadcast and communicate. So your GMRS radios will look something like this. So let me go back to my share here and back to the camera. Okay, and go to here, speaker view. So on the camera, I'll set aside my FRS radios. Great little radios. This is Midland, there's the Motorola. This one's one of my favorite ones. This is you can't get these anymore. It's a little Radio Shack, but it's a wonderful little FRS radio. All right, set these guys aside and we'll show you the GMRS radios. The GMRS radios, this guy here are the GMRS radios. Move these guys aside. And what's unique about the GMRS radios, if you take a look at these, is first thing that you'll notice in comparison to the FRS radios is that the FRS radios have a fixed antenna. You can't change these. If you try to remove this, you'll end up breaking it. So no, you can't change these. But with the GMRS radios, yes, you can. These guys unscrew. They come with a very short, what we call rubber duck antenna. These are called little rubber duck antennas. And this one comes with a rubber duck. This is the length of it. And as you can compare the length of the antennas here, there's quite a difference in the length of the antenna. So the length of the antenna is key to it being able to reach farther distances, which, again, if you're looking to use these in an emergency situation, you want to have as much reach as possible. We're using the GMRS radios here in building 1600 between myself and my lab tech. The reason why we do is because we'll get into greater detail about what it is that I would recommend for us to use here on campus. But the nice thing about the GMRS radio is our cell phone usage on campus is really challenged because the buildings that we're in are steel and concrete, and I can't call from one end of the building to the other end of the building with my cell phone to try to reach my lab tech. And for whatever reason, because this is an older building, we can't get desk phones into the instructor desk. So what we've come up with is a great solution is our GMRS radios. These guys are marvelous. I'll get into more detail about these guys in a little while, but the biggest thing that you can see, yes, longer antenna, replaceable antenna. It does have a, unlike the FRSs, you do have the FRSs run on AA or AAA batteries, and the more advanced radios will have detachable batteries, so you can keep one in the charger while one is in the use of the machine. And these are higher capacity batteries. So for a number of reasons, these would be superior to the FRS radios. Now, you can communicate very effectively. You can communicate, these can communicate with these because these are FRS capable as well as GMRS capable. So it gives you a bit more flexibility than a regular FRS radio. So these can communicate with other FRS radios, and these can talk to the FRS. And the FRS can talk to this because this is GMRS and FRS capable. The next category that we'll talk about in our slides will be this one here. Take a look. This is the third category we call amateur radio, aka ham radio. And that's what Dr. Catherine Pink has asked me about truly a year ago to this month. Do you know anything about ham radio? I knew zip, zero, nada, nothing, nit, nine. But I learned a lot in the past 12 months. An interesting thing, the world of ham radio has from a few watts to up to a 1,500 watt limit. So the world is your pearl, as the expression goes. We won't be spending a whole lot of time in today's discussion to talk about Citizens Band or the MERS, but we'll focus on the first three. So let's take a look at where these guys compare with each other with respect to broadcasting. With respect to sending signal, here's a scale that shows 0 to 600 miles, and this is put together for us, and it shows FRS. HT stands for a handheld transmitter, or sometimes people call this a handy talkie. So an FRS HT, like I showed you, the little yellow Motorola's, they'll have a range anywhere between half a mile up to maybe 2 miles. If you're lucky in a wooded area, in an urban area, half a mile, because there's a lot of buildings and structures in the way. And so somebody might ask, some of you might ask, hey, Frank, I've seen advertisements at Walmart and they're blister packed. I can get 2, I can get 3 of these, and they say 35-mile range. Yeah, 35 miles if you are at one mountaintop and your friend is at another mountaintop and you have a clear line of sight between the two mountaintops and there's no flock of birds or clouds or precipitation between you all. Yeah, you might get 35 miles. But in reality, in your urban setting, in your when we were driving, our cars were no more than half a mile apart, really, between a quarter mile to half a mile apart was as far apart as we were driving. And we felt, because we were in the car is made of metal, and we're trying to use an antenna with a radio with an antenna in the car, we're kind of in our own shell. So the limits are going to be rather low. GMRS, as you can see, has a little broader range. And we'll talk about how we can use GMRS that can go even further than this. There's something known as GMRS repeaters. Like your cell phone towers have cell towers. So your cell phones have cell towers, which are what we call repeaters. When you're driving along and you're going down Highway 80 or 880, cruising down to your destination, your cell phone will switch automatically from one cell tower in San Leandro to another cell tower in Union City, to another cell tower in Fremont, to another cell tower in San Jose, because cell towers are all over the place. Well, there happen to be GMRS repeaters, which are kind of like cell towers, and they will give you range that go beyond the number of miles that's shown here. Let's jump up to the top of the range here. Take a look at ham radio. With ham radio, we have a broad range of power and we have a broad range of distances. And we'll see how that's achieved in a little bit. In our radios, here's our wonderful family radio service. You have these radios somewhere in some trunk, in some drawer, in some chest somewhere in your home. Dig it out. Let's put in fresh batteries and let's try using them to communicate, and we'll practice. and they come in all different sizes, different flavors. But the one thing you'll notice that's very common between them, take a look at the length of the antennas. They're all short, stubby antennas. They have to be by FCC regulations. They're only 1/2 watt to 2 watt units. Most of these are 1/2 watt, and they have limited range. But here's the bottom line. Any radio that works in an emergency is a great radio. So don't misunderstand me. I'm not putting down FRS. I love FRS, used it for years, but I do understand where the limitations are with FRS. So now with FRS, there's pros and cons. Here you go. It says here for pros, right, I wrote it down. How about that? Any working radio is better than no cellular phone service. The thing about FRS is that they are budget priced. And you don't need an FCC license in order to work these. You just go down to Walmart or Target or Home Depot, Lowe's, you buy your blister pack and you open it up and you can start using it right away. They are very easy to use. And here's a Amazon link, Motorola T100 TP Talkabouts 3-pack for $37.99. That's a great deal for budget radios. Am I jumping up and down to go buy another blister pack of 3 radios? No, I don't need these because I understand where some of those limitations are. Cons, they are limited wattage, limited range. Fixed antenna, you cannot replace the antenna with a more effective, better antenna. It's just fixed. Now, and it comes with a short antenna, so you have limited reception and transmission capabilities. They really do work, all radios do work best, line of sight. So just keep that in mind. Line of sight means where you can eyeball the person you're talking to. That is called line of sight. That will give you the best communications. If you can't see them, if they're around the corner and there's a building between you, understand that your range is going to be diminished some. It is also what we call comms. Comms is an abbreviation for communications. A very challenged communications through structures, terrain, hills, valleys, and foliage. Trees are a big deal to be concerned about. Next, then they are HTs is the abbreviation that's given to them. HTs for handheld transmitter or handy talkies, as some people like to call them. The next range we'll talk about is the GMRS. This is what I showed you earlier. This is the BTEC GMRS V1. This is what we use on campus. And several advantages to this. First of all, you have the ability to output way more than 2 watts. So these can be from 1 watt to 3 watts up to 5 watts. And we also have extended range if we use repeaters. They are still very reasonably priced. They are easy to use. It does require an FCC license though. You go, oh no, there's an FCC, I have to get an FCC license. What's involved with that? Well, it's just about as easy as getting a fishing license. And for a whole family, because it covers your whole family, it's a lot cheaper than a fishing license for a whole family. It works out to be you have to be 18 years or older to file for an FCC license. And once you acquire your license, anybody in your immediate family can use your license number to communicate. Now, what does immediate family mean? Here, I've got to share this with you because this part's really, really good. Right here and right here, make this a little, so oops, come back here. Make this a little bigger. It says your immediate family includes, if you can see this, you, your spouse, your children, your grandchildren, your stepchildren, your parents, grandparents, step-parents, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and also your in-laws. Now, if you had to get fishing licenses for all of these people for 10 years, it would be like several hundreds of dollars and to get this license for 10 years from the FCC is $70 for your whole family for a whole 10 years. It's a deal. It really, really is very good. And that will allow you to use the GMRS radios and still be on the right side with the FCC. I have a link in my PowerPoint that shows you step by step how to get your GMRS license, and the Zoom presentation will be recorded and will be edited and uploaded to my YouTube channel so that you can have access to this later on. GMRS, great. Now, how far can a GMRS radio transmit? Based on 5 watts and based on our friend John McClure, who put this table together, inside the car with average surroundings, anywheres, now keep in mind, it says here, your car is a metal shield. You are in a can when you're in a car. So when you're trying to broadcast out of a car, there's going to be some limitation. If you're in a metro area walking around, you can get between 1 to 3 miles, but it does vary depending upon your buildings and other obstructions. Suburbs, then it would depend on the amount of leaves in the trees. If you're in a flat area over the water, easily 6 to 12 miles based on line of sight. And a mountain to valley, depending upon how high up the mountain is, how deep the valley is, you can get some good 15 to 20 mile range there. Mountain to mountain is the best. And even with my FRS, according to Walmart, according to Motorola, I can get up to 35 miles between mountains. Well, the GMRS has more wattage and will be able to do that even more effectively than the little FRS radios. And now to a repeater. We'll talk about repeaters in a little bit. Wow, we can get to the world. It's amazing with the repeater. Now, talk about amateur radio. This is the next category. With amateur radio is also known as ham radio. And these we can use with a broad range of antennas. I've got the medium length rubber duckies here. I've got a really nice diamond antenna made by a company called Diamond on this particular handy talkie. They can output anywhere from 5, 6, 7, 8 watts for the handheld units, and in the mobile units, anywhere between 25 to 100 watts. So what am I talking? Let's see. We have a wide range of pricing depending upon performance. This little guy here on the end was a gift I gave to a friend. And this is a really, really nice little radio. It's a little budget radio, but it is ham radio. And so it's able to broadcast and receive a much broader range of frequencies, much wider distances. This guy's like $26, very, very reasonably priced. So here you can achieve a great range for the dollar. And even this little guy here can reach the ISS, our International Space Station. There's a tracking program on your cell phone. You can track when the International Space Station is going to be overhead in your area, and at the right time when the space station is overhead, you can communicate with a repeater that's in the space station specifically for ham radio communications. It's kind of fun. There is a requirement for an FCC license. Now this guy is even less. This is $15 and it covers you for 10 years. However, you do have to pass an FCC test for this in order to utilize ham radios legally, okay? So let's talk a little bit about line of sight versus using repeaters. Here's a picture that shows line of sight. Here's a fella that's standing on a hill, and down the bottom of the hill, there happens to be a neighborhood and somebody's down there. And as long as we have a clear line of sight, whoa, radio transmission works great. However, if there's a mountain or a building between you and your person you're trying to communicate, well, we can have one person in city A, another person in city B, and we can put a repeater on the top of a mountain. And guess what? As long as you can reach the top of that mountain and the other person can reach the top of the mountain, you can be able to chat with each other through repeaters. And not only a single repeater, but there's also something here called network of repeaters. That's what makes radio even more effective. Let me share with you what I've learned this past year about network of repeaters. Here's one that's local to our area. This is CARLA, the CARLA Repeater Network. CARLA stands for California Amateur Radio Linking Association. And it is, as I say, a network of repeaters from all across California, Western Nevada, and you can chat with anybody that has access to these repeaters in these locations. Now, it's a little small for you to see, but I'm going to make this a little larger here, and hopefully you can see this, and bring this up here. All right. Carla, system number 2 in San Francisco, 600 feet up on the top of a skyscraper. Greenfield, Oakland. I've connected with Carla 2, connected with Carla 5 out of Oakland. There's repeaters in Modesto, Monterey Bay, Walnut Creek, Pleasanton, Shasta Lake, Fresno, Sacramento, Hayward. Hayward has got several. Got 2 different repeater frequencies in here. Oakland's got 2 different repeater frequencies here. So our East Bay is pretty well covered with your ability to be able to get onto the Carla network and be able to communicate some distances here in the East Bay easily, and then even further other parts of Los Angeles, Bakersfield, Mount Shasta, Geyserville, Redding, North Lake Tahoe, Reno. So you can see their system of repeaters is really quite broad. They're listing 36 repeaters in this particular network, and I've been able to have some pretty good communications with some people on this network. If I go back to here, I remember one day, October the 9th, I was in San Francisco that day, and I was able to connect to the Carla repeater in Oakland. Now check this out. I'm in San Francisco, and my handheld radio was able to connect to the repeater in Oakland. Now there is a repeater in San Francisco, which I could have more easily connected to, but I just wanted to challenge the system and see if I could reach Oakland. Sure enough, I was able to reach the repeater in Oakland, and when I reached the repeater in Oakland, I was able to chat with somebody who was in Tuolumne, that's just outside Yosemite National Park. Isn't that amazing? San Francisco through a repeater in Oakland that was connected to a repeater near Tuolumne, and I was able to chat with someone just outside Yosemite Park. Man, and I've also had communications, from Hayward to Modesto, also communications from San Francisco to Orinda, all the way up to Redding. Now, how long is it going to take for you and I to drive to Redding from here? It's a good 4+ hour drive, 3 if you're a speeder, but still, from San Francisco to Orinda, all the way up to Redding. This is really amazing when you use radios through a repeater network. And if that doesn't impress you, check this out. The WIN repeater system is amazing. I happen to have found this just by listening. And one of the things that you'll find, you learn more by listening than you do by talking. So for the first 2 months after I got my license, I wasn't talking to anybody on the radio. I was just listening. And listening to the banter that was going on, who was saying what to whom, what type of conversations were happening, what type of networks were meeting for different kinds of activities. So the WIN repeater system is amazing. There are over 100 linked repeaters all over the country and around the world. The WIN repeater system I found by accident. I live in Hercules, and which is about 25 miles away from their repeater in Napa. I caught that repeater at 441.675 megahertz, and I started hearing conversations and things that were happening. I heard conversations with people from Liverpool, England on that network, Sydney, Australia, Israel, Yokohama, Japan, Honolulu, Vancouver, BC, where I happen to have family, and all over the U.S. from coast to coast. It is amazing. I have personally chatted with people when I was in Hercules, all the way to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to Seattle, to Las Vegas, to Ontario, to San Pedro, to Salt Lake City, all from my residence in Hercules. And that's with my handheld, just because I was able to reach a repeater. And so another interesting thing about radios is this. Some networks, like Carla, well, certainly the WIN system, they have what they call local area nets that meet together. In fact, I'm very blessed to have met a very nice couple who have become my Elmers. Elmer is the expression that is used for someone who is way more experienced in radio than you are, that is willing to teach you anything and everything that they know about radio. And so a very nice couple that I've met out of Marina Bay in Richmond, Jay and Karen Fenton, learned so much about them, from them regarding their own neighborhood net. And this is what I'd like to start here at Chabot, is a network where we can someday in the future designate a day and a time, maybe a Wednesday at noon, and just drive to campus with your handheld FRS radios or whatever other kind of radios you have, and we'll have an emergency communications drill. We will go ahead and practice chatting with each other using our little radios to practice how to communicate with each other on radio. And I think that practice is essential. Would you get a driver's license and put that driver's license in a drawer and not drive until, oh, I need to drive, it's an emergency, and some weeks later you drive? No, you have to practice. And the same thing with radio. So one of the very interesting things that nets that will happen, in fact, every first Wednesday, and tomorrow's the first Wednesday of the month, I will be engaged with emergency communications drill in the East Bay, from Richmond to Hercules, Pinole, San Pablo, through different frequencies. There will be FRS communications, there will be GMRS communications, and there will also be ham communications. So we're all a network to communicate with each other for the purpose of being comfortable with emergency drill communications if and when that ever happens. Other fun things that you can do other than emergency drills is other networks. This is something I'm going to just interject here for a moment. There is a group called the Insomniac Trivia Net. This happens every evening at 11 o'clock on the WIN system repeaters, and there's WIN system repeaters in different parts of California as well. I catch this out of the Napa repeater. And what they do, they post on their emails and their Discord channel the various questions of that they're going to see who can answer these questions. It's all for fun, but it's also for practicing the use of your radio. So instead of saying, hi, this is Frank out of Hercules, or this is Frank out of Chabot, and I'm checking in, I happen to be using my little FRS from Radio Shack. Hello, how are you? That's great. That aspect of communications is wonderful, to be able to talk to other people here on campus, just doing that. But to make it even more fun, what these people have done is they've created a trivia net. And what they do is they post these trivia questions. And here's an example of the ones that were posted on Halloween's evening just last Saturday. The question was, annual Halloween episodes of Simpsons, the annual Halloween episodes of Simpsons is blank, A, B, C, D. A for Nightmare on Homer Street, or B, Treehouse of Horror, C, Springfield Night Fever, D, Trick or Treat Mrs. Crabapple. Number 2, the brown recluse spider has a mark in what shape on its back? A, it's a violin, or it's shaped like a heart, or an hourglass, or a thumbprint. And then Blue Mountain coffee comes from where? Kenya, Guatemala, Jamaica, Indonesia. So they'll have various different kinds of questions out here that they'll throw out. And these are posted well in advance of the 11 o'clock net. And you, for fun, just test your trivia knowledge and just put down your answers. And instead of saying ABC, when you call into the net, we use the NATO phonetic alphabet. And so A stands for, we would speak the word alpha, and here's the pronunciation alpha, B for Bravo, C for Charlie, D for Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel, India, Juliet, Kilo. So there's a whole list of the phonetics that are used, Romeo, Sierra, Tango, Uniform, Victor, Whiskey, X-ray, Yankee, Zulu. So there's a whole phonetic alternative to the letters. Why don't we just use letters? Why don't we just say A, B, or C when I'm answering a trivia net or something that we come up with here at Chabot College? Well, guess what? The reason why, take a look at my second bullet point. Letters, G, C, T, E, V. Don't they sound similar? G, C, T, E, V. And if you say it quickly, or if you have, if you're blessed to have an accent that compels people to listen more carefully, still the sounds can be very similar and mistaken for each other. However, third bullet point, there is no ambiguity where you say instead of G, you say golf. Instead of C, you say Charlie. Instead of T, you say Tango. Instead of E, you say Echo. Instead of V, you say Victor. And you won't be using the NATO phonetic alphabet for anything other than identifying something that needs to be very clearly identified. So let's go back to this trivia thing really quick. How about the brown recluse spider? Brown recluse spider has what mark in what shape on its back? Is it Alpha for violin? Is it Bravo for heart? Is it Charlie for hourglass? Is it Delta for thumbprint? Mark that down. And then for your annual Halloween episodes of The Simpsons, question number 1, is your answer Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, or Delta? And for number 3, those of you who are coffee drinkers, you gotta know this one. Is it Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, or Delta? So when you're on the Insomniac net at 11, they'll call out your call sign if you've registered. And if you haven't registered, then they give you a period of time where you can check in and say, hi, I haven't registered before, but my call sign is blah, 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 blah. And they will give you an opportunity to shout out your answers. And you might say, oh, my answer is Bravo, Bravo, Charlie. And if you call out Bravo, Bravo, Charlie, that means you're selected B, B, and C. Who knows the answers to these questions? Who would like to venture to guess? Any of you out there want to give me a Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and ABC? Annual household, annual.
Bravo?
What's that?
I know the first one is Bravo.
First one is Bravo. Okay, so we got a vote for Bravo for the first question. All right. Anybody got a vote for the second question? Brown recluse spider has a mark in what shape on its back? Is it violin? Is it heart? Is it hourglass? Is it thumbprint? What do you think?
Charlie. That's what Lisa said.
Charlie? Okay, we have a vote for Charlie. Okay, so we have a Bravo and a Charlie so far for the first 2 questions. Any coffee drinkers out there for the last question? Blue Mountain Coffee comes from where? Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, or Delta? Anybody would like to guess? I'll put them Bravo. I don't know. I mean, I could get on the net and search anything on the internet, but the key thing about the trivia is not to have to go look it up on the net, is to see what you might know just in the back of your mind. I'd like Guatemala coffee, so maybe it comes from there. Bravo, Charlie, Bravo is what we've shouted out so far. I have the answers hidden for us. Let me see if I can reach it right here. Boop.
Looks like there's a consensus on the chat that it's Charlie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you for, okay, we'll scratch that. So the last one is going to be consensus of opinion is Charlie for Jamaica. All right, so my Guatemala got beat out. Let me pull this out front where we can see it. And it is, aha, BAC. So the first one, bravo. The Simpsons was Treehouse of Horror. That was their Halloween episode. And then number two, I put down C for hourglass, but it turns out to be alpha for violin. It's a violin-shaped marking. That's very interesting on a brown recluse spider. I would never want to be close enough to see that for real myself. And because the chat overwhelmingly selected C, Charlie, for Jamaica, yes, the answer is C, Charlie for Jamaica. And so when they did this net, here's the answers for that particular evening. All three correct. 88 people got all three correct. 20 people got two correct. 30 people got one correct. And then the total check-in for the people for that evening, Halloween evening, was 148 people checking in. Very interesting, very, very fun net, fun people who are engaged in it, and they have a wide range of questions. I was going to put up a different set of questions following the Halloween questions. One was, what do the three ex-wives of Tom Cruise have in common? Anyway, we'll save that for another time. So here we go. Let's start a Chabot College net. Let's pick a day, let's pick a time, meet on campus. Now, we don't have to meet face to face. You could be in your own buildings. All you need is your radio. And if you want to meet me ahead of time to check if your radio is working right, we set it to the right frequency. I'm almost always in building 1600, so we can certainly, make sure that your radio is working properly before we do the net. But bring in your existing walkie-talkies. Don't have to buy new. And if you do choose to invest in something, well, we'll talk about some options that I'd recommend for you. We would start by registering with me your name, email, cell number, type of radio that you have. I will compile a list. I will draft a list, a call list for FRS users. I will draft a list for GMRS users and ham users. And the reason why I'll break them into lists is that for a very specific length of time during our Chabot College net, I will make that time frame open and available for FRS users. So you all, I will call out to Elsa, or we'll call out to Anna Marie, or call out to Aaron and say, all right, you've registered under FRS radio. Is Aaron out there? And then Aaron will hold up his FRS radio and say, yeah, I've got me one of these Motorola things, and here I am, blah, 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 and that's great. And so then we'll finish the FRS users roll call. Then we'll go through those people who are using GMRS radios, and then we'll finish up with people using ham radios. And now here's something that's really interesting. This bullet point right here. This bullet point right here, certain GMRS radios, like the BTEC V1 that I showed you earlier, can be programmed to listen to ham radio frequencies. You can use this GMRS radio, and I can help you program it so that you can listen to ham frequencies like the Insomnia net, like the Wind system, like the Carla networks. You can listen. You can't transmit, but you can listen. You'll learn a whole lot just by listening in. And it only takes less than 5 minutes for me to program your GMRS radio for this extra bonus feature for free. The only thing I charge is you bring a smile with you. FRS users, who can you communicate? You can communicate with other FRS users, no problema. GMRS users, if you choose for this range of radio, you can communicate with FRS users and GMRS users. So this middle range gives you quite a bit of flexibility. Now, ham radio users can communicate with other hams. We can listen into FRS. We can listen into GMRS comms. Clearly, let me say this, it is against FCC regulations for ham users to directly communicate with FRS and GMRS users, except in extreme emergencies where life and property are threatened. When you have that extreme of an emergency, like what's happening in a firestorm or what's happening in an earthquake, the FCC is lenient and will allow us to cross communicate. So here's the thing. I recommend we all get together and what? Practice, practice, practice. I've used this question before. Would you get a driver's license only to keep it in the drawer for a few months until you needed to use your car occasionally? No. And here's the other thing. Our friends, and those of you who know and teach any skills-based curriculum, math, your languages, you've got to practice, because practice is what gives you confidence. Practice is what allows you to be fluent. And in radio, you want to practice your skill. The Elmers, as I've been very blessed to have Jay and Karen Fenton as my Elmers, they are experienced radio uners who train newbies like me. And I can be an Elmer to people who know less than I do. I don't know that much, but I know a little more than some. And what we do is my Elmers, they conduct a neighborhood comm every first Wednesday at 11 o'clock. So guess what I'm going to be doing tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock? I'm going to be using FRS, GMRS, and my ham to join that emergency communications network for the hour from 11 to 12 and practice our neighborhood communications in Richmond to El Sobrante to Pinole up to Hercules. Let's get started. And yes, guess what? We have young people working radios. Here's what I would recommend for you. So here's more detailed information. This is the GMRS radio that we use here on campus. This is the one that can communicate FRS with my little yellow Motorola's, as well as to other GMRS radios. And I can and have programmed this to be able to listen to all ham frequencies that my ham radios can communicate with. And it's very reasonably priced. The thing is like $54.99, and you're getting a very, very quality radio with this. I showed you that it has a detachable battery. It has a detachable antenna, so the battery is a much longer lasting usage battery than your AA, AAAs that you use in your little FRS radios. And the detachable antenna allows you to get longer, more distance communications. The next one that is really exciting, and this one here, I know Dr. Kat Pincus, she has one of these. I have one of these. I really love this radio. This is a great radio. My Baofeng BF F8 HP. Most of the ham radios and handy talkies are like 5 watts. This guy's got 8 watts. Let's get a little more beefy broadcast power. You can get it with a larger capacity battery. This is an Amazon price. And just yesterday came in at $69.89. And is this a superior radio to the GMRS? Yes, it has a bigger, higher capacity battery, and it can certainly communicate on all the ham frequencies where you can talk to the world with this particular guy. You can talk to the International Space Station with this particular guy. And again, not very expensive at all. Here you go. Does it require a license to listen? No. You can get this, and you can listen all day long. No license to listen, but you will need an FCC license if you want to transmit legally and keep on the good side of the FCC. I've used that word several times. Are there some people that use this radio and do not have licenses? Yes, there are people that use this radio that do not have licenses. We don't licensed users don't recommend that, because you really don't want to be on the wrong side of any government agency. But there are some people that do use this without a license, and there's a category of users out there some of our preppers, some of our survivalists do this. Well, save that discussion for another time. Now, for just a little bit more, is the Yaesu FT65R. It's like $10 more than the the Baofeng. It doesn't have the same wattage output. It's a regular 5 watt out. It's not 8 watts like the Baofeng. So why am I excited about this for $10 more and has less power? Well, this Yaesu is a very high quality Japanese manufacturer. This unit is manufactured under license in China. The Baofeng is made in China. The BTEC is made in China. That's fine. This one's designed in the US. This one's designed in the US. This one's designed in Japan and made in China. This one has a really, really good front end receiver. What that means is a really good reception capability. And it has, and I put in a bigger battery on it. I really like this radio. It's a great radio for the money. My radios, I've got a few, and these are all my ham radios here. You've seen all my FRS radios. I do have a really, really long antenna, because I said, yeah, your reach with your radios is really dependent upon how far you can go with your antenna, and the longer the antenna, the farther you can go. I've mounted this 30+ inch antenna, this one right here, it's just sitting on the desk. I mounted that on the end of an 18-foot painter's pole, extended that up, and now this thing is over 20 some odd feet up in the air, and that's what I'm going to use for my emergencies communications test tomorrow, first Wednesday, from my city to try to reach our friends in Richmond. I also have the same antenna mounted on a magnet on my car. That's a mag mount. And in addition to the handhelds, I also have a mobile rig. And so my mobile rig, and I'll divert from here for just a moment. Let me finish this up. There's some other things on here that are good for you. My contact information, you have my school contact information, FKO at Chabot College.edu, but this is my ham radio call sign. I am Kilo Oscar 6 Golf Uniform Yankee at gmail.com. And I prefer all of our radio communications come to me through ko6guy at gmail.com. And I will reiterate this on any emails that you send to my college email address. There are a couple of pages of reference links that I'd be happy to share with you. How far will that radio go? Getting your GMRS license, information about the family radio service and amateur radio service, information, a link to the Carla network, link to the repeater network from the WIN system, the Insomniac net, the NATO Alphabet net. And for those who are, this is a fun page, survivalists, preppers, readying for an SHTF event. What is an SHTF event? Well, SHTF stands for SH, blah, blah, blah. HI, blah, blah, blah. TH, blah, blah, blah. Fan, event. The zombie apocalypse. And so for those people who are in the extreme areas of interest of survivalists, I have some additional links here that are really interesting that may be helpful to you. So we will come back to this particular guy here, and lastly finish up with this. This goes to show my EDC. This is my EDC. EDC is my everyday carry. So I'm using this as my everyday carry. My Yaesu is often every day for the missus. The Baofeng is forever in my office. And what I happen to have in the back here is my mobile. This mobile is all of these are ham radios. And so I use this when I go backpacking, when I'm in my car. And this guy is has its own 50-watt transmitter, and the antenna is magnet mount. Here's the base. And if I back up a little bit, you can see that is one tall antenna, and I have that on the top of my car. So with that, I will say, you know, it's been absolutely marvelous having you all as part of this chat on using emergency radios. So if you have the interest to communicate with me, let's set up a Chabot College communications network. Let's start with our little FRS radios, bring them to campus. We'll set you, email me your interest, and then we'll pick a day and time for us to get in communications with each other to set up a net. So I hope you've been able to find that this has been informative, that this may be useful to you. My favorite little FRS radio, this little Radio Shack is just totally badass. Anyway, you didn't hear me say that, but it is a great little radio. So yeah, let's get going with something here. So the more you practice, the more comfortable you will get regarding the use of your radios. And with that, the closing phrase for ham radio users to all of our friends is 73. 73 means have a wonderful day. And so I will say 73 to you all. So this is Frank Ko. This is Kilo Oscar 6, Golf Uniform Yankee, signing out. And have a most wonderful, wonderful day. Take care, my friends. Adios. Any last questions that are out there?
Hi, Frank. It's Anna Marie.
Okay.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. You mentioned you had a YouTube channel, but it wasn't listed in the resources. Do you have one, or did I mishear?
No, I do have a YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is primarily for my electronics courses and personal interests. You'll find that under Frank Ko. So if you go to YouTube and you look under Frank Ko, then you'll see all different kinds of YouTubes that I've created for my electronics courses and music and things of that sort. This is the very first recording on radios. So Dr. Pincus, look at what you started. This is amazing, Dr. Cat. Love you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
where you'll
Thank
find me,
you.
okay?
Thank
There you are, dear. All right, wonderful. So good to see you. Okay, my friends, I look forward to chatting with you offline. It's the end of my time, so we will be together via email. You have my email, fko at chabotcollege.edu or ko6guy@gmail.com. And with that, I will say 73 to all of you. Take care. Adios.